Hello everyone, and welcome back to Unboxed. Last week, we started talking about anxiety in general, but today I would like first to start talking a little bit about anxiety in children. Yes, in children, even children can experience this, but we often tend to miss it because we're not looking for it, and we often say, what do they have to feel anxious about? What do they have to worry about? They have no stress, they have no problems, but that is not the case. Let's start by understanding that anxiety in children is very common. Like I had mentioned before, anxiety or anxiousness is a normal response and is a normal emotion. So of course, children tend to feel this as well. But they also tend to pick up behaviors from family members, caretakers, school, their peers, and persons around them. So they may also develop these anxious tendencies by seeing them being displayed. Anxiety in children can become very chronic and persistent and develop into an actual anxiety disorder, especially if they don't learn to outgrow their fears, their worries, and if they don't have proper mechanisms and coping tools to help them through these. There are a few anxiety disorders that children can develop, and this would lead to a disruption in the way they play, their learning, their ability to concentrate, focus, the way they interact with others, and they may even start withdrawing. There are a few types of anxiety disorders that children may experience. A very common one is one called separation anxiety. You may have noticed this even when reflecting, that it could have appeared even from when the child was a baby, meaning they tend to want to stay with their parents. If they have to go to a stranger or someone else, they tend to cry, they tend to not eat, they tend to be uneasy and restless. And growing up, these children now start to not want to be away from their parents. And you might have noticed when it's time to go to school or go anywhere that causes them to be away from their parents, they start to make complaints about, oh, I'm not feeling well, I have a headache, or I think I have a tummy ache, or something is wrong with me, for any reason to just remain with their parents. Because when they're separated, they tend to have these fears and these worries that something may go wrong, that something can happen to my parents, or that I might be abandoned. So separation anxiety is a very common one. Another one is phobias. Now, what are phobias? Phobias are basically irrational fears. What does that mean? It means that whatever fear I'm experiencing is not on a normal level. It is amplified, it is magnified, and it comes with things such as shortness of breath, screaming, panting, yelling, feeling flustered, feeling like you might faint, and all these types of behaviors that when you look at this, you're like, why are you reacting like this to this type of situation? And just to give you an example, fear or phobias of spiders is a very common one. Now in children, it may be to dogs or to situations or other things. So you just have to look out for the child's reaction and understand, is this a normal type of reaction towards this type of object, or is this excessive? Then there's social anxiety, which is basically when they're afraid of going into places where there are many people, which includes things like school. You might even find that they avoid going to school fairs or events or anything that involves a large number of people. Of course, there's that general anxiety, which is just that fear or worry that comes with every day and the unknown and that uncertainty of what is going to happen with a certain event. And they may also develop what we call panic disorder or panic anxiety, which comes with panic attacks. So the anxiety is so bad to the point where they start having a shortness of breath, sweating, panting, they're worried, they feel like their heart is palpitating, they feel like they may faint or they may die, and they can even scream or cry. And this type of anxiety is a little bit exaggerated, more than with a normal type of anxiety that you would feel, but not uncommon in children. Last time, we talked a little bit about the general signs and symptoms that you may experience of anxiety, and these can also be presented in children, especially that irritability, that worry, that upset stomach feeling or headaches or dizziness, and a lot of physical manifestations. Those tend to appear a lot more in children. Now let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things that may cause children to feel anxious or to end up feeling this anxiousness on a daily level, or that the exposure is there constantly, that they do develop an anxiety disorder. There are some examples such as frequently moving homes or changing schools, parents fighting or arguing, the death of a close relative or friend, becoming seriously ill or getting injured in an accident, school-related issues like exams, standing in front of the class, making a presentation, bullying, or difficulties with teachers. Then there's the factor of being abused or neglected. So if your child's exposed to any of those things, the chances are likely that they could be feeling anxious and they could be feeling nervous. But most children don't know to communicate that they're anxious. They don't know to say, "Mom, this is worrying me," or "Dad, this is making me feel tense," or they don't really know how to describe these physical manifestations. So they also may not be coming to you with what they're feeling. And because you don't know, you may also miss it. But it's very important, now that we've gone through this topic, that you pay closer attention to your child. What's going on in their daily life? What's going on in school? What's going on in their home life and their environment? And of course, while we might be observed in our own worlds and with our own problems and difficulties, these things can also affect children. So let's not forget that, because we might think, okay, let's use the example of parents arguing. We might think, okay, this is just between him and I. This is not between the child and us, so the child might not be affected. But if that child is hearing, if that child is seeing, if that child is soaking up everything that's going on, of course it's going to affect them. And it can cause other mental health issues other than anxiety. So let's be a little more aware of our kids and what's going on with them. I hope today's topic was a little helpful to you, and let's use this so that we can help our children and ensure that they're as healthy as they can be.